Lamzu, don't miss. This is the all-new Maya and it has a all-new shape that's really quite interesting. But before that, I want to talk about one decision on here that might be a bit controversial to some, but I personally respect. And that is the choice to stick with mechanical Huano Pink Dot Blue shell switches. Now this decision is going to be a bit curious, especially since Lamzu's latest gaming mouse, the Thorn, has optical switches done reasonably well. But I know for a fact from Lamzu that they personally prefer mechanical switches. The feeling of optical switches isn't quite at the same level as mechanical switches are quite yet, and I am inclined to agree. The Pink Dot Blue shell switches on here feel much better than a lot of the optical switches I've tried in recent times. And the only optical switches that I've used and really like are Razer's optical switches. Like even the G Pro X Superlight 2 switches, which I thought were decent, were nowhere as good as the mechanical switches it replaces. So I'm guessing Lamzu stuck with the Huano Pink Dot Blue shells here to conserve the excellent click feel from its somewhat similar looking brother, the Atlantis Mini. But whatever it is a supposed custom Huano Pink Dot Blue shell design, and it has special specs just for Lamzu, so supposedly has better longevity and speed to keep up with the optical switches that all its competition has. Whatever it is, I personally believe click feel is way more important than the improvements in click latency and longevity that optical switches give. That aside though, let's talk about the shape, which is all new here and really interesting. It is about the same size as the Lamzu Atlantis Mini that it looks quite similar to, but it does have a couple of changes that make it a completely different feel in the hand. Number one, the sides are definitely more bulbous. They're flatter, actually they kind of curve outwards a little. Number two, the hips at the back here, they are sleeker and narrower, so they don't push as much against the back of your thumb and your forefinger, which might be a good or bad thing depending on who you ask. The overall mouse feels a little bit more puffier and rounded on the edges, and the hump, instead of being kind of super steep at the back like on the Atlantis Mini or the XM1, that kind of style or shape of mouse has been moved more towards the front or center of the mouse, and the curvature of this hump is a lot more gentle. The click height is still quite low, but it is higher than what you find on the Lamzu Atlantis Mini, which definitely draws comparison to the G Pro X Superlight. And some people have actually gone on Reddit and said it kind of looks like a G Pro X Superlight Mini. I think the best way to describe it though is that it's more of like a Viper Mini with a puffier size. Like it's a little bit taller and puffier, because that's kind of what this shape reminds me most of. And when I put it side by side with my Viper Mini Signature Edition, you can definitely see the similarities in the design ethos, from how the front flares out in a V shape like this, and from how the curvature of the hump and the sides and the base actually looks. However, compared to the Viper Mini Signature Edition, it's still a little bit bigger, so for some people it might or might not be a one-for-one replacement for the Viper Mini Wireless. As for shape and size recommendations, I'm gonna recommend that if you're claw gripping this mouse, the max length of your hand should be 19 centimeters. If your hand is longer than 19 centimeters, you probably should look elsewhere if you're claw gripping, because my hands are about 19.5, 19.3 centimeters long, and they are struggling to hold to this mouse already. I have to use a pretty aggressive claw grip to be comfortable. And do note, I have pretty short fingers, so if you have longer fingers than I do, you would definitely not find this comfortable if you have the same hand length as me using this mouse with a claw grip. However, if you're fingertip gripping, I'm actually going to say that this is probably an improvement over the Lamzu Atlantis Mini. The Lamzu Atlantis Mini has a hump that's super rearward, so it kind of gets in the way if you're fingertip gripping a little bit, especially if you have short stubby fingers like mine. So the hump being more forward and more centered actually kind of moves it out of the way for me, and I personally find that fingertip gripping this mouse is really easy. Now, if you have really small hands, you could palm grip this mouse, but I generally wouldn't quite recommend it unless your hands are like under 15 centimeters long. But I do manage to get a comfortable grip on this. And while my hands get a little bit tired after long-term use, like 2-3 hours of intense gaming, non-stop deathmatching, not just like normal Valorant gameplay, but overall using it, it definitely feels pretty good. I definitely can see the G Pro X Mini comparisons here, and while it isn't a G Pro X Mini, I can definitely say that if you like the G Pro X style of shape and you thought it was too big for your hands, this is definitely a reasonable alternative. As for the other aspects of the mouse, this mouse is super duper light, 47 grams, which is pretty darn insane. Like any other Lamzu mouse, it also comes with grip tape and replacement mice feet in the box, which is excellent. And it also has support for 4000 Hz polling rate with the optional Lamzu dongle, which is excellent. The clicks I've already praised at the start of the video, and while I like them, they actually are aren't quite perfect yet. This is a pre-production unit, so I'm going to forgive Lamzu and hope they fix this for the actual production unit. But they do have quite a bit of post-travel and a little bit of sideways wriggle, so they're not perfect. Hopefully they can fix this for the actual production unit, but they definitely feel good when you're clicking them, just not as perfect as on the Atlantis Mini or the Atlantis V2. The scroll wheel is nice, but it actually is different to the Atlantis. Instead of having a low, quiet click, you have a sharp, very snappy, crisp sounding click, which is cool. And then the thumb buttons are great with basically no pre-travel, no post-travel, and very minimal wriggle. Very solidly done. Good job. The sensor is a 3395 as expected with motion sync, and it also has a Nordic MCU with supposedly better motion latency. Battery life on this mouse is okay. It's a really lightweight mouse, so the battery in here really isn't that big. I had to charge this mouse after about 12 hours of use on 4000 Hz polling rate. So if you are like a non-stop competitive gamer and you're constantly gaming, you're gonna have to charge it once a day. But if you're kind of like a casual gamer who games after work or games after school for like 2 to 3 hours every day, you probably charge it once a week. But hey, you get a really lightweight mouse because of it, so pros and cons. All in all then, the Lamzu Maya. Should you buy it? Well, at the price it's going for, it seems like a very reasonable option. Of course, it's always about the shape, and if you are looking for a G Pro X style mouse but smaller, this is a very interesting choice that I would argue is extremely compelling. It's got good specs, it's got good features, and hopefully if they fix the post-travel issues in the actual production unit, it's got good clicks as well. It's not exactly a revolutionary new shape, it's more like a heavy modification on the Atlantis Mini, but hey, nothing to complain about. There are drawbacks like the battery life and the slippery coating, which you have to fix with grip tape. But beyond that, there's no real deal breakers here for me to report that will actually make you want to not buy this thing. So good job Lamzu for another excellent mouse release. Keep it up, keep up the good work, and thank you guys for supporting this channel. Make sure you like and subscribe, and if you want to do some tech shopping in Singapore, my new project called the techyard.com is linked in the description and in the comments down below, so check it out.